It's Monday morning and it is time to get our wild bouquet and watercolor on. We are doing our little pocket painting today, and I decided to do a little throwback from my childhood. I used to pick my mom little bouquets of dandelions, which she would always put them in a little jar just to show that she appreciated them, I guess. But looking back, it was kind of sweet, but dandelions were probably not her favorite flower. But when you're a child, it's pretty. You want your mama to have it. So that's what I would do. So I decided we would do just a little wild bouquet of dandelions, do it in a pretty loose manner. So the first thing I've done here is I have drawn out, or I am drawing out, some dandelions and a few of their little seed pods, their little fluff balls, and a little bloom here that's about to open. And I don't like that, so I'm gonna erase it. I want to. It just didn't look like I wanted it to, so I'm just gonna redraw it. And I'm using 140-pound cold pressed paper here. I haven't taped it to anything or stretched it. I'm just gonna paint directly onto it because I'm not using. It's gonna look like I'm using a lot of water, but I'm not really using enough to make it buckle too much. So now I'm drawing that back in. I'm gonna keep working on it till I like it. I think I'm going to pull some of these stems down a little further. Draw some leaves behind here, just some leaf shapes. I'm not trying to be accurate because I want this to be sort of a loose painting. I'm not trying to do a detailed botanical. I'm just trying to do something fun for a Monday morning to get my creative juices started and hopefully inspire you. Once I had it all drawn out, then I just applied some masking fluid and let the masking fluid dry completely. And now I'm wetting my paper, and I'm just going to start dropping in some green. This is Hooker's green, I believe, and I'm just going to drop that in all around my little blossoms, and I've protected them with that masking fluid so that I can keep them white so that I can come back and paint them later. But I want to do the background first. So I'm just painting in some nice greens, and I decided since my dandelions are going to be yellow, I would put in some purple as the complementary color. Purple and yellow, they make each other look brighter and prettier when they're put together, so that's what we're going for. And I'm just dropping some into the green and just doing a nice easy wet on wet technique. Nothing fancy, nothing scary, nothing hard. Now I'm coming back with a little lighter green. I believe that is some green gold mixed in with just a little tiny bit of sap green. And I'm just putting in a little lighter green just around the edges, pulling it down to the bottom so that it looks like there's little stems down there. And now I'm just taking a little bit of really thick cadmium yellow, and it's more on the opaque side, so I'm dropping that in, and since it's a thicker, heavier paint, it's going to push the other paint out and become sort of little yellow dandelions in the background. Now I'm just taking a liner brush and I'm just drawing in some little stems, some little sticks, little pieces of grass. Whatever you want to do on yours is fine. I'm also taking some sap green and putting a little bit of that in there in my little sticks. And now I'm taking my larger brush and just blending some of that out. Just kind of messing around with it. I'm going to wet here underneath this little blossom that's trying to poke its head up and just add a few more little paintbrush strokes to indicate that there are some stems there. And I'm pretty pleased with how it's coming. I'm adding a little bit darker green in there just to define that area just a little bit more. And I'm taking my brush and just sort of pulling out the edges so that the edges are fairly fringy and kind of raggedy and wild looking. I want it to look like it's, a little patch of grass in the wild or something like that. I'm taking a flat bristle brush and I am just sort of lifting out some of the stems down into the middle of that little bouquet, that little clump of flowers there. And I'm just sort of blending that out down with my little brush and just take your tissue or paper towel and dab it up Now this area dried and it's got sort of a background. I don't like it, so I'm just going to re-wet it and just put in some more paint and be done with it. Now I am just taking a really dark, sort of a perylene green, or you can mix a little red with your green to make it darker. I'm taking a little darker green and putting in the shapes of some of those leaves in the background. And I'm kind of coming down around the flowers so that it'll make that darkness will make those lighter flowers really pop out. So I'm just kind of adding a few here and there, just random shapes. Again, we're going for pretty and loose, not botanical and exact matches. I'm just adding a little bit more of those little seed stalks or little grasses, whatever you want to call them. You just add some more in the back, just to give it some texture and pull some extra elements into it. This really went quick. The hardest part was waiting for the layers to dry. I'm just pulling out a little bit more of those stems out of there, just lifting a little bit more. I'm taking a paler green, and I believe that is green gold with a little bit of the sap green, and painting in the leaves. I have removed the masking fluid, obviously. I let that background painting dry completely before I removed that masking fluid, though. Just make sure you let the paint dry before you remove the masking fluid. And I'm just coming in now with the like of a paler, yellower green and painting in those leaf shapes. And that looks pretty good. It could use a little bit more color, I think. So I'm just going to put in a little bit more. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and just kind of decide where we want to go next. And I think we probably need to go ahead and start on the dandelions. And I'm just taking a really watery wash of a lemon yellow and just painting it over the dandelions. I'm leaving some white spaces to show through, just to leave like some highlight areas, especially around the little edges. So I'm just getting that yellow paint in there. And this little yellow bud right here, he's got just a little yellow sticking out of the pod. And I'm just going to paint the stems with some of my lighter green. And go ahead and paint those in there. And around the little bud, little pod here on this dandelion. And then I'm just taking a little bit of the darker yellow. You can use yellow ochre, or you can use a really watery burnt sienna if you'd like, maybe even an orange. It's up to you. I use sort of a yellowish brownish color. And I'm just adding some shadows and some raggedy sort of brush strokes. What I mean by raggedy is they're not smooth and clean. They're just sort of put down haphazardly. But I am trying to center it around the center of the flower and make those brush strokes go out from the center some. Now we're going to work on the little fuzz ball, the little seed ball of the dandelion. I'm wetting it first, and then I'm going to take a little bit of pale gray. I actually mixed some of that yellow and some of that purple together to get this nice gray. And I'm going to drop it in, just touch it to the wet background and let it blend out. And then I smooth the top one out with my brush to get a nice shadow up there. I want it to have more of a shadow. And I'm just going to go around on that leaf and put a little shadow on that leaf. I'm going to lift out some of the veins of these darker leaves so they don't look so flat. Add a little vein in that lighter leaf with some darker green. And now I'm just going to come back with my gray. I'm going to keep working on these little seed puffs, these little fluffy dandelion seed heads, I guess is what you call them. And just adding tiny little dots of that gray, and it's still wet, so they're kind of it gives it a really soft look, and we want that soft look for these little fuzzy things, these little seeds. When we were little, when we would see them one of the individual seeds just floating in the air, we would swear it was a fairy and we'd run around and try to catch it and make a wish on it. So we thought that those little dandelion seeds flying in the air were little tiny fairies and that we could get wishes off of them. So yes, we had big imaginations when we were young. I wonder if y'all had any of those kind of imaginations or thoughts about the dandelion seeds flying. If you do, let me know in the comments. But we would get excited when we would see like an individual one just flying around in the air, because we would swear it was a fairy. We'd run around till we caught it, and then once we caught it, we would make a wish and then set it free again and swear that our wish would come true. So I'm going to add, I think I need a little darker shadow here because I want to bring forth the little fluffy seed pod. So I'm just going to come down and go around and behind that stem of the seed pod with my dark leaf shape back there. And so yeah, I like that. That looks better to me anyway. It's bringing the foreground even further to us. Just pushing it out there, making it pop out there. I added a few more shadows in that bottom stem, the stem little group. And now I'm just adding a little bit more green in the leaves, the lighter leaves. And it's looking pretty good. I think then I'm going to concentrate a few more of these little gray areas just to give this a more shadow and a little more darkness. And you hear my little dove Dorian. He is calling to y'all. He's cheering you on. He wants you to do so good with this painting. He's really showing his vote of confidence. I know, Dorian. They are going to be great painters. Yes, that's going to be beautiful. I can't wait to see them. You want to darken in the center of that fluff ball there. If you'll look at a dandelion, it's darker toward the center, and of course it gets lighter as the seeds grow out away from that center, and it has that little pale white halo around the edges. So try to get that in there. I'm drawing just some really faint lines so that you can see the little stems on the seeds, just to give an indication of that. I'm going to come back and add a few more shadows here and there in the greenery. But it's pretty much getting close to being finished, maybe just a few tweaks. Now I'm just adding a little bit of bleed proof white, and I added just a few highlights there. It was so fast you could barely see it. I just did it on the fluff balls. And now I'm just sort of blending in this colors on these lighter greens that are in the stems and that leaf, and there you have it. You have a beautiful little wild bouquet for your Monday morning mini pocket painting. So if you love art and enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel so that you don't miss anything. I will see you soon. Happy painting, guys.